Hi, this is Christina Howe, and I am recording my project for Intercultural Communication. Thanks for joining me. Today, I wanted to talk about language as a barrier, perception, and how perception sort of forms our base of ideas and how we process things like language, what we see, what we think, what we feel. I also wanted to discuss acculturation and some of the processes of that. I have experience that lends itself really wonderfully to the topics covered in our textbook, Intercultural Communication. This semester has been really eye-opening for me, and I hope to impart some wisdom. So, I would like to start by mentioning that my father is Greek. He is from Greece. He is an immigrant, and I am a first-born generation American on my dad's side. So he came over with very few English skills, but he learned, and he learned through watching television with subtitles, which I thought was interesting. That was really his teacher of American culture, norms, and language. And I myself used some of those same tactics when I traveled to Greece and didn't know the language either. I was very easily able to find television shows and movies on regular TV. I didn't have to look hard, and they were American programs being run in Greece in English, not dubbed over in Greek, but they did have Greek subtitles. So hearing words that were familiar and then being able to see the words on the bottom of the screen as they're being spoken was tremendously helpful for me in learning a language. But before I can get into all of that, I do need to tell you that my father, when I was growing up, owned businesses, pizza restaurants, and we dealt with a lot of customers coming in, and this all happened in Brattleboro, Vermont, not the most ethnically diverse place in America, but it was okay. People were kind. We didn't experience too much overt racism. But there was a lot of miscommunication and lack of understanding around my dad's accent. I had to translate a lot for him on his behalf. Most people understood him pretty clearly, and it was obvious that the people who didn't understand him at all just didn't have exposure to a foreign experience or a foreign language or an accent. As a part of perception, we really form our base of knowledge and our entire culture that we exist in, that we live in our homes, workplaces, and schools. That we learned about the nation state identity and how all of these things come together to form our own personal identity, and how much of that goes into shape our perception and the process by which we would filter stimuli, sounds and sights and sensations. And a big part of language, in learning a new language and being able to process a new accent, even of English, which we all understand pretty well. A big part of processing that is having heard it before and learning how to attend to it. So I've learned very well throughout my experience having a foreign father and a lot of experience with traveling to foreign countries that don't speak English primarily. I learned how to process that information that's not easily recognizable by the ear, that most people might tune out as irrelevant. It's another language, it doesn't pertain to me, and then you don't really process it without really focusing on it and really trying to process it. It makes it difficult when we make a call to a service center and we get connected with somebody who doesn't speak English well, who has a very heavy accent. We can't communicate well with that person. But I find that I don't have difficulties because of my experience with foreign language, with travel, and with being sort of immersed in a home culture of two different languages, English and Greek. My dad didn't teach me Greek, but I did hear it and I did see him write it. And I did pick up small pieces, words, and key phrases that were very helpful for me to take with me on our trips into Greece. It would have been exceptionally helpful to know the language, because not knowing Greek turned out to be one of the biggest factors in the worst heartbreak I had experienced. I traveled to Greece several times as a kid and as a teenager, and over those trips we would stay for extended periods of time in my dad's gorgeous rustic village in the mountains near the border of Albania. And I am including some photos in a slide just so we can all see and enjoy that experience. It's wonderful. But there is a sense of community when you're in that remote of a location and you depend on that community more than you depend on media or internet access. Because when you're here, you're not able to access internet, television, or movies. There's no modern conveniences. But what I found in that community was that initially I was brought right in. Other teenagers in this group were so curious, naturally curious about my life in America. And I got to, in a way, be an ambassador or a representative of the United States. But I was young and I was inexperienced and I was bad at being an ambassador. I was full of anxiety. We've learned a lot about anxiety in this semester and how it relates to barriers in communication. My anxiety was a definite barrier for me in learning a new language and adopting customs because I was embarrassed and scared that I might fail, that I might be judged or laughed at. So instead of trying my best, I didn't try at all. I was too afraid to. And it ultimately left me after about 3 visits to Greece, extended visits, it ultimately left me feeling isolated and alone, really. I felt maybe marginalized even at times. There were kids in the village who I'd been friends with for years now who started to turn their backs on me because I didn't speak the language. And I thought that by not learning the language, I had decided not to care about them and their culture and communicating with them, which wasn't the case at all. I was just terrified to learn and I would have just benefited from guidance. So I think as that relates to our experiences in the United States and how we handle immigrants and even refugees, how we handle these experiences is important. So we are maybe not aware that we could be causing those feelings of isolation or marginalization or forced assimilation into an immigrant or refugee who is slow to acculturate or to integrate in that most perfect sense of marrying 2 cultures together, blending and finding harmony. That is often not the case when we're talking about acculturation, when we're talking about immigration as well to the United States. And when an expat like myself and my family travels to another culture, it is also difficult to find that perfect integration, even as an individual in a small community. And I feel it's important to note that back in chapter 4, we discussed the case of Fragante, a Filipino man, in the case of Fragante versus the city and county of Honolulu. And he was denied a job for a position he applied for as a county clerk or a town clerk. I think it's a county clerk, sorry. So he had applied for this position and was turned down because of his language, because he had an accent, and not because he wasn't qualified. So as he's turned down, we kind of express our feelings in the group discussion about how it's important to know the language of the place that you're going to be working in and living in order to be a good intercultural communicator. However, I feel differently. I feel that in order to be good intercultural communicators as American citizens right here in the United States, what we can do is become more diverse and accepting, which will just lead to more diversity and acceptance. Once we open up our perception and process the stimuli of a foreign accent or a foreign language or strange norms and other foods from different cultures that maybe come in, and especially ideas. And once we invite these things and these people into our workforce, our homes, our communities, and our government, once we give them proper representation, I think what we'll see more of is that maybe we won't fight immigration as hard as we do in this country. Maybe we won't find it necessary to put up these border walls that merely act as symbols. They don't deter immigration, and they don't stop refugees from needing a place to go. What they do is tell people of the world that we're afraid of them, and we don't like them, we don't want them, and we don't find them equal. And I find myself feeling more and more often that behavior needs to stop. And the best way to do it is to pay attention to that foreign call you have at with a service center when your computer stops working or your dishwasher breaks down, to just try to absorb that accent, to push yourself and challenge yourself, because we can't grow all together as America if we don't each individually decide to make this change. As we know, we are individualistic, which then puts the responsibility of this on each of us as individuals. I hope that I have expressed some clarity on the issues that I've experienced, and I want to thank you all for listening and joining me today. Bye.